In this video, we're going to review the LG G1 in a side-by-side comparison versus the LG C1 to help you decide if it's worth paying more for OLED Evo technology. Keep watching. Hello everyone, my name is Vincent Teo, and this is the 55-inch LG G1 OLED, which uses the same SoC as the step-down C1 OLED, codenamed O20N in the service menu. One difference is that far-field voice is enabled on the G1, but null on the C1, meaning that the LG G1 will support hands-free voice control, but the C1 won't. Now, for potential buyers of 2021 OLED TVs, it seems that the variant of concern is whether the OLED panel on a particular TV is the latest, more efficient OLED panel, or what most people call the Evo panel from LG Display. The LG G1 will definitely be using an Evo panel from LG Display's Guangzhou fab, which is characterized by a narrower blue half-width, as well as a clearer separation between the green and red peaks in terms of the spectral power distribution. With the 55-inch and 65-inch LG C1, you can get either the newer, more efficient OLED panel from Guangzhou, or the more established OLED panel from Paju. For the record, our LG 55C1 retail unit is equipped with an OLED panel from Paju, and so exhibited the traditional cyan tint off-center, compared with the off-axis pink tint observed on the G1. Otherwise, the vast majority of picture processing is the same between the LG C1 and G1, which is hardly surprising given that they share the same Alpha 9 Gen 4 chipset. Both televisions suppressed near-black flashing artifacts effectively on this moving quantization test pattern developed by Stacy Spears of Spears & Mansell fame. Both OLEDs could be calibrated to achieve very good color accuracy. For example, after SDR calibration, average delta error on our LG G1 review sample came in around 1 on this challenging color checker SG chart where 140 patches were measured, with only one color exceeding the humanly perceptible inaccuracy threshold of delta error 3. As a result, general colors including skin tones would be faithfully reproduced according to the creative intent. At the same screen size, motion performance was identical between the LG C1 and G1. Even with all motion interpolation disabled, both the LG C1 and G1 presented 24 frames per second movies correctly without telecinic judder. For viewers who cannot tolerate the mild stutter inherent in 24p films, which is more obvious on OLED due to the display technology's near instantaneous pixel response time, LG also offers a new cinematic movement setting to smooth out the stutter without introducing too much soap opera effect or interpolation artifacts. With true motion disabled, motion resolution came in at the sample and hold baseline of 300 lines on this horizontally scrolling test pattern from the FPD benchmark disc. Engaging true motion interpolation would more than double motion resolution to 650 lines, which can be increased to 1080 lines or even higher by activating OLED Motion Pro 120Hz blood frame insertion. Like what we have observed on previous LG OLEDs, engaging true motion on the G1 and C1 would occasionally introduce microstutter in the 50Hz broadcast material we get in the UK and other PAL regions. Upscaling was very good, retrieving sharp detail from this SMPTE RP133 test card in 576i with minor fizziness and overshoot, so even grubby standard definition broadcast would look palatable if you are still watching much standard def programs on a cutting-edge 4K OLED. Jaggies in video-based interlaced content were suppressed effectively, while for film-based interlaced material, the LG G1 and C1 correctly detected and processed 3.2 and 2.2 cadences with cinema screen engaged. Both OLED TVs passed full chroma bandwidth in this 1080p test pattern from the Spears & Mansell HD benchmark disc. Bright uniformity was excellent on both our G1 and C1 review units, revealing no significant dirty screen effect, bending or color tinting on full-field gray slides. Note that because we had to angle in the TVs to fit within the camera frame, the outer portions would look slightly darker with different tints in the footages throughout this video. This video is sponsored by Box, the online technology store. Visit box.co.uk for the best deals on TVs, soundbars, and all your other technology needs. Normally, Evo OLED panels from Guangzhou would exhibit faint horizontal lines or what we call the Venetian blind effect in very bright HDR elements. but we were genuinely hard-pressed to see it on our 55-inch LG G1 review sample, be it on test patterns or torture test contents, such as the intro logo of Sony Columbia Pictures. Due to panel-to-panel variation, it is impossible to make firm conclusions about dark uniformity. For what it's worth, our LG G1 with Guangzhou panel appeared cleaner near black than our C1 retail unit with Paju panel. For HDR, peak brightness on our LG 55G1 review unit measured 780 nits after calibration to D65 white point and 155 nits full fill. Although these figures are slightly higher than those measured on our 55-inch C1, the difference was difficult to appreciate in actual HDR viewing, due to how our eyes perceive brightness in a logarithmic manner, and how HDR content is mastered according to the absolute ST2084 PQ standard. The advantage conferred by the OLED Evo technology on the LG G1 mostly manifested itself on full-screen white. For example, on our own custom-authored automatic brightness limiter or ABL test pattern containing a white circle that expands to fill up the screen, or this Horses in Snow demo from the Spears & Munsil UHD HDR benchmark disc. The more efficient Evo panel on the LG G1 also consumes less power, as you can see from the figures displayed by these energy meters as we cycle through color patches in HDR on both televisions. LG's dynamic tone mapping, inaccurately labeled as HDR tone mapping on the company's 2021 televisions, worked in the same way on both the G1 and C1, lowering the overall APL to retain bright specular highlight detail in some shots, but brightening other middling scenes unnecessarily, which unfortunately deviates from the artistic intent, making us less inclined to use it. For gaming, input lag at 60 frames per second measured under 10 milliseconds with boost mode engaged in the game optimizer menu, and a class-leading 4.8 milliseconds at 120 FPS. 4 HDMI 2.1 ports are provided, as is support for 4K 120Hz, VRR, NVIDIA G-Sync, AMD FreeSync, and HGIG, which hard clips correctly at 800 nits to prevent superfluous double-tone mapping with HGIG-compliant games. Thanks to a more relaxed ABL algorithm, SDR day mode could go a tad brighter on the LG G1, making it a slightly better choice for installation in a sunlit room. In terms of aesthetics, the G1 Gallery series is designed to be wall-mounted and ships with a wall mount bracket included with the TV. If you wish to place the LG G1 on a piece of AV furniture, you will have to buy the feet separately, which is quite wide apart and fairly unsightly compared with the stand design of the C1. To assess sound quality, we muted the speakers on the LG G1 and C1 in turns, and found to our surprise that we needed to increase the numerical volume on the G1 substantially before its decibel levels would match the C1's. Overall, the LG G1's bass response extended deeper, but dialogue and mid-range on the C1 sounded clearer. To sum up, the LG G1 remains one of the best OLED TVs you can buy in 2021, with its gaming prowess likely being the clincher for many potential buyers, earning the TV our highly recommended award. Versus the step-down C1, the G1 could go slightly brighter, particularly full screen, all while consuming less power, and in theory, this should reduce the risk of image retention and permanent burn-in even further, since the OLED subpixels are not driven as hard. However, the LG C1 is cheaper in price, especially considering that you don't need to purchase the stand separately. Personally, and it is just me, but I think an easy way to make a decision is to go for the G1 if you would like to wall mount your TV, otherwise just get the C1. If you would like to watch more of our technical TV comparisons, please click here for our playlist, and I will see you in the next video.